Yeah, I got very good access to Iranian diplomats who had detailed knowledge of what was taking place in Oman during the negotiations. And they were befuddled. They were confused. They couldn't understand the Trump administration. And in many cases, they would ask me to help them interpret what Trump was doing because they couldn't understand.
So you said in that article that the Iranian diplomats that you spoke with claimed that they would sit down with the U.S., they would feel good about the conversation, like they were making progress.
Yeah.
And then they would go back and in front of the cameras, Witkoff would say absolutely 0% enrichment, which is an absolute non-starter for them. And they felt they were just using the negotiations to destabilize their economy, right? That was basically what your article said.
Yeah, I got very good access to Iranian diplomats who had detailed knowledge of what was taking place in Oman during the negotiations. And they were befuddled. They were confused. They couldn't understand the Trump administration. And in many cases, they would ask me to help them interpret what Trump was doing because they couldn't understand. And I I think the simplest explanation is usually true. Witkoff and Trump's team has no idea what they're doing. Right. They don't understand the issues. They are not very intelligent. And the Iranians had
So it's not 4D chess.
The Iranians had to convince themselves there was some deep theory behind the Trump administration's bipolar behavior, that they were playing 4D chess and were using their wildly shifting narratives and talking points to destabilize Iran's economy, because the economy would be destabilized every time Trump would say something belligerent. It would also be destabilized anytime Trump would say something positive, because oil prices would go down in expectation that Iranian oil would come onto the market in a formal sense, which would mean the price of oil goes down, and that affects Iran's economy as well. But I mean, I had a friend tell me, your hotel would have been cheaper tonight if we weren't in these negotiations, because today the economy, the real weakened against the dollar, and you're not allowed to use, you can't just, use dollars in Iran. So, I mean, I'm using real. And so my dollar wasn't worth as much anyway, or the real had strengthened against the dollar. So my dollar wasn't worth as much. Anyway, you get the point. So they're trying to interpret Trump, but the reality is, I think, pretty simple. The Trump team will meet in Oman, and they're very overwhelmed. Steve Witkoff is busy with Ukraine. He's busy with the Gaza ceasefire, which he's just utterly screwed up, like in a disgusting fashion. And he's playing Israel's lawyer there. And then he makes time for the Iranians. They have some positive interactions because the Iranians are actually making concrete proposals, including to, for example, have a consortium sharing uranium with U.S. allies in Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates. And then the U.S. team will say, okay, this sounds good. They don't know what they're doing. And then they go back to Washington, and then Zionists descend on them from the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies and Miriam Adelson. And they say, oh, no, you don't. Netanyahu wants the Libya model. He wants to blow up the power plants. And then they send a completely different message when they're being interviewed on the Sunday shows, as Steve Witkoff does, and it throws everything into chaos. So now they're saying that they've resisted Israeli pressure. This is from Barak Ravid, who's like the guy that everyone in Israel and a lot of people in Washington who deal with the Middle East leak to, like the political class, from Axios. Right. And he said that, the U.S. is willing to allow Iran to enrich at around 3%, which means they've resisted Israeli pressure. I don't know if we can believe that will hold, given the whole history here. And there was not a whole lot of optimism in the streets in Iran or among the kind of intelligentsia that I would speak to about the possibility of a durable deal actually delivering real sanctions relief to Iran, which leaves kind of the principalist camp in the right, those who say we need to focus on BRICS, the BRICS alliance, and escaping from this hegemony, the financial hegemony and terror of the dollar, which the US has exerted very effectively, but it's overplayed its hand. And that means forging a close alliance with China. That's what will happen. And that's what was happening when I was there, because, when I visited, Iran was coming off several years of, including through the Biden administration, of maximum pressure, just sanctions and no relief. So all the construction equipment that I saw there was from China. It was thanks to China, economic future. And I go into a shopping mall in an affluent area, or even at rest stops, and there would be new Chinese electric vehicles, which we're not allowed to buy in the US.
Right. The BYDs.
All the new cars that were kind of nice or considered luxurious, many of them coming onto the market in Iran were from China. Technology, China, but also Iran has done more than almost any country in history to develop under siege and sanctions. And what they've done is incredible. I mean, they have a whole nanotechnology center. They have their own Silicon Valley. Their ballistic missiles, which are now hypersonic and can penetrate the Iron Dome after reaching Tel Aviv in 7 minutes, all domestically developed, almost no support from the outside. Their civilian nuclear industry mines uranium locally, trains thousands and thousands of researchers locally, domestically. Their drones, they have one of the most powerful drone industries in the world, to the point where they're now exporting drones to Russia to use in the Ukrainian theater. Many of their drones were reverse engineered from US drones, which were either captured or taken down by Iranian domestically developed anti-aircraft systems. So they've done so much domestically, and it really sets the stage for them to come out of sanctions without giving up their independence. But we'll see. This government, it's a reformist government. It's a government that's more inclined to make a deal with the West than what will follow it and what preceded it with Ibrahim Raisi. We'll see if they are willing to make a deal with Trump and not get burned.
Come see us live. Glasgow, Manchester, Belfast, Dublin, London, Liverpool, Birmingham. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets.